teacher is an expected absence. Item here, Tony Hobson, Michelle Hopkins here, Delisa Hutchins, Micah,
Here.
Laura Sanders here, Bishop Tate, and Sally Westheimer.
Yes, here.
Thank you. We have a quorum. Next, we'll move to the review and approval of minutes from the December 6th meeting. Does anyone have any suggested changes to those minutes?
Why don't you look at Debbie?
Everybody.
I did a scan of the room, not just to Debbie.
I make a motion to approve the minutes as
Is there a second?
Second.
All right, all in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Okay, the minutes are approved. Next, we'll turn it over to Shar for the mission moment.
Thank you so much. We have started a new series, or revived a new series, where we have Provider of the Month. And this month, it's actually going to coincide with our mission moment. We will hear directly from Christine Bowman with Little Treasures. She is a family child care provider who was with us in quality improvement, as well as tuition assistance. I know that you all read about her in the Board of Managers update and saw that, but we want you to hear, in her own words, the impact that Cincinnati Preschool Promise has had and why she continues to be a part of our network.
Christina Bowman. I am the director and owner of Little Treasures Child Care. And I am located, or child care is located in the Mount Airy. And we've been doing child care, or I've been doing child care for 29 years. And it's been a great journey for me, but to prelude into why I appreciate Cincinnati Preschool Promise at this time in my business, this time in child care, is because I've finally reached a place in child care where I feel like I am really contributing more to the community and my families. Cincinnati Preschool Promise has been so good and so essential part of my child care for everything they have done. They have helped me achieve a higher level in rating. They have provided me with coaches. They have provided with this great quality improvement part of it. My teachers are feeling appreciated. I finally have teachers to help me in the center, and they have been participating in the Promise Grant. We've been able to achieve great levels of professional development classes, CDAs, all because of the support of Cincinnati Preschool Promise.
We were pleased to share Ms. Bowman's story, and you will actually see her in action when we do some social media post and release that we'll be doing a Provider of the Month and testimonials, thanks to some encouragement and direction that we've gotten from our Community Engagement Committee that really encouraged us to let other people tell the story with us. Right? So
Thanks for putting that together. It's so nice to get to see those. Shar, can I ask you to introduce our next presenter also?
Absolutely. I am pleased to introduce to you all Jessica Seller, who is the Executive Director of the Academy of Medicine of Cincinnati, and she's going to come forward with a special gift. Jessica and I have been talking over the last couple of months, and like many of us, trying to find a way to pay an appropriate tribute to Dr. Owens. And I'd also like to mention, in addition to Jessica, Dr. Owens' son, Christopher, joined us today as well. He may have stepped out for one moment, but he will return. So Jessica, if you would please come to the podium.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Tara and everyone, for having us. I'm Jessica Seller. I'm the Executive Director for the Academy of Medicine. We are a professional association for physicians, but really our mission is to help physicians and advocate for them so that they can provide the highest quality care for their patients in the community. Dr. Owens was a council member of the Academy in addition to the many roles that he held in his career. And unfortunately, once he had passed, we wanted wanted to see if we could find a way to honor him in just some small way. And we came across the work of Cincy Preschool Promise. We saw his role in it, and it seemed like the perfect fit. I did not have a chance to know him personally, although I've heard so much about him since I joined the academy. So I am very grateful to be able to introduce Dr. Albert Nelson, who had worked alongside with him and knew of him, to share some of his experience with Dr. Owens.
Thank you very much. Good morning. I guess it's still morning. I'm honored to be here. I'm told by Ms. Sellers that I have 3 minutes to say everything I want to say about Mr. Owens would take about maybe 3 hours. But let me just say this. I knew Odell when he was a medical student. I knew him as a resident. I participated in his recruitment to the university here when he became the first director of reproductive endocrinology at UC. So we go way back. What I admired most about Odell was his humanity. You know, if you know him, he was a very passionate man. And I can't think of anything more passionate about than education. He was really instrumental in so many projects. We were in an organization together, and he was instrumental in providing guidance, setting great examples for young kids. So if we are donating something in his memory, I don't think you could have picked a better project than this education project. Odell and I had similar backgrounds. Of course, he was born in Ohio, and I came from another part of the country. And if you haven't detected an accent yet, you know where I'm from. Well, Odell and I, Odell went to Antioch College, and we would talk about historically Black college and his experiences at Antioch. And one of the things that we had in common was the fact that we both really were passionate about Benjamin Lincoln. And Odell and I would discuss at length, on multiple occasions, a very famous quote by Dr. Mays. And if you are with the promise and the things that promises to kids, I like to tell you what we talked about. And Dr. Mays said that it is not your environment, it is you. The quality of your minds, the integrity of your souls, the determination of your wills that will determine your future and shape your life. Now, Odell is one of the best examples that I know about that. You know, you look at a kid who was born in the West End, ends up with major accomplishments. That's why I would take him, to be honest. But he was a great man. I admired him, and I know we miss him today. Thank you.
So thank you for letting us honor him in this small way and carrying on his legacy and the work that you're doing. We will stay very connected to Cincy Preschool Promise and make sure that we're sharing all the good work that you're doing with our physician community and the community at large. But we appreciate everything that you've done, and Christopher, we hope that this is a good way to honor your father. Thank you very much.
Thank you all very much for being here and for this gift. We're so grateful, and we'll continue to celebrate Dr. Owens and his contributions to the community and to our organization for many years to come. So thank you for this and for sharing those words. We're very grateful. Next, we're going to move to the executive director's report, and Char will go back to you.
Let's talk about legacy making stuff and the impact that we're having. First, to just do a report back and let you know that we have been working with the executive committee on setting our strategic enrollment goals. We have new data collected that they will be reviewing at the meeting next week. The plan is to bring their recommendation on how to set that goal back to you at the March meeting, where we'll also be having Ann Maxfield join us to do a progress report on the strategic plan and next steps. So at our March meeting, know that we will be ready to vote on that, get your approval on how we determine what those enrollment targets will be going forward. Also, you will notice in your printed packages, here is the update on current enrollment. We have 847 students who have been approved and 801 regularly attending and 31 pending. That's the single handout that we always do. We don't send it as a pre-read because if you will remember, this is raw data we have that has not been validated by an external evaluator. It's a snapshot of where we are. So this kind of gives you of where we are this year compared to where we are last year. We're doing pretty well. We know that we will probably peak again end of April, beginning of May, when we have final enrollments of students to make sure that they are enrolled and attending so they're eligible for the extended learning session. So our target is to get at least 50 more students enrolled and attending before the end of the year. You will also see we have some new community providers in our network, 2 tuition assistants who were onboarded this week, as well as accepting 5 new providers into our quality improvement cohort. Collectively, that is about 95 seats, high quality seats in capacity, as those QI providers move and the family child care providers and the seats that they provide. We'll continue to keep you updated on that. We did have 1 permanent closure of a family child care program in Westwood with a 6-seat capacity. Also to let you know that we did a second round of our Smart Start backpack distribution because we got some funds in and some private dollars. What we decided to do is to make sure that we distributed those to all children at tuition assisted sites, not only those receiving tuition assistance from the Preschool Promise. It was difficult to go to a classroom with backpacks for some children and not for others. And thanks to a generous grant, we were able to do that. We did a mid-year distribution because in reality, many of the supplies that we provided and even some of the backpacks at the beginning have disappeared. Children use crayons. And so mid-year distribution allows us to kind of get everybody again. We did 1 before Thanksgiving. We'll be doing another at the beginning of February, thanks to some help from some UC students. We have about 700 more to distribute. So while our original target was 1,000, we will actually have distributed 1,711 this year of Smart Start backpacks. So we were really excited about that. We hope that you all received prior to coming to this meeting our renewed, first of 2023, first in 3 years, community newsletter. One of the primary objectives we had this year is to have better engagement with our stakeholders, to share more about what we're doing. So we sent out our first community newsletter. It will come on the last day of the month, once a quarter. Great input from the Community Education, Community Engagement Committee and what should be in that. What you'll also notice at the end of that survey, at the end of the newsletter is a survey where we're asking input on the program that you all told me is our priority to design, and that is how people feel about preschool attendance. What are those barriers? What do we think are the obstacles? We're working very closely with Innovations to collect those results as we start to build out the program and initiative related to that. Also, Cost of Quality Committee has been meeting regularly and has set some priorities for 2023. I'd like to turn it over to Sally if you'd like to share those priorities, what the committee has been doing, and I apologize, I didn't think you were going to attend this meeting, so I dumped it in my report, but now that you're here, I'm happy to turn it over to you as the committee chair.
Thanks. Yeah, we had a great meeting. I think as most board members, did you press? Yeah, thanks. So board members know, Cost of Quality has really mostly addressed teacher wages with our various pilot projects, and we really want to think about the cost of quality in broader terms. So the first thing we really need to know is what is the cost of quality, not what does the state pay or what was determined in the RAND report in 2015 or 16, but what does it really cost based on what we know constitutes quality? And so that's our highest priority, because to work toward that in funding and support will be a goal going forward. The second thing we're really focusing on this year is the biggest problem in our field, well, in many fields, but especially in preschool, is where are the teachers? Where are the potential teachers? And every program is struggling with finding qualified teachers, and so we will continue to look at efforts to strengthen the talent pipeline to make sure that programs are staffed appropriately. And we need to continue, especially with the state of Ohio, playing around with step up to quality and what constitutes quality, that we need to be certain that we have a firm definition for us on what is quality and what it takes to, how we define it and what it takes to sustain it. So those are our 2023 priorities for the Cost of Quality Committee.
Thank you, Sally. And I will just compliment the committee because it has a strong mix of community leaders and stakeholders, as well as board members who have been working very hard to read the hundreds of pages of reports that I send them, the updates, the scan that we've done nationwide for best practices. So we're looking forward to some recommendations from that committee on how we move forward. The Cost of Quality Committee is also very closely aligned with the topics that are on the policy agenda that Groundwork Ohio has shared with us. We distributed this in advance, and the policy agenda is really focused on exactly what drives the Preschool Promises mission, right? What is the cost of quality? How do we make high quality early childhood education more accessible? And how do we solve the problem of educators and recruiting people to that talent pipeline at all levels? Groundwork Ohio will be sponsoring an advocacy day on March 8th at the State House, Big Voices for Little Children. We have 10 slots that have been reserved for us for Preschool Promise related individuals to participate. 2 of those slots are filled, and I know I'm one. So if anybody else would like to participate, please join us. You do not have to stay for the whole day, but it is an entire toolkit that shares information, preparation for meetings with legislatures, just basic information that you would need to know to make your voice heard on how important early childhood education is in our community. So I will continue to send you updates into that. We are carpooling. A bus is going. You can drive on your own. Anyone can carpool with me if they'd like to do that. But we would encourage you to attend because we are recognized as leaders in the state. And you showing up with your Preschool Promise shirt, badge, and blazer, if you choose to come, will be very important in that advocacy realm. So we'll continue to send you information on that as well. And also talking a little bit more about the policy agenda. I know the State of the State, Governor DeWine issued today, and Vanessa Freitag has been kind enough to join us today to give us kind of an overall state of early childhood education and what will be involved in that. Before I do that, I would just like to take one moment to acknowledge a staffing change that we had, and to just for everybody to recognize Kenitra Mathis is our new Deputy Director. If you'd like to raise your hand, Kenitra, give a wave. We are so pleased that she has joined us and taken on that new role. If you could just give her a hand. With that, I will turn it over to you, Vanessa. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Shara. I'm Vanessa Freitag. I'm the President and CEO of 4C for Children. We are actually in our 51st year of supporting early childhood education. So a great part of the work that we do is supporting the quality improvement work that Preschool Promise is leading. So a couple of things. Shara asked me to give you an update on the state of child care. And I will start just for a second with the governor's budget. And I plucked out of his budget text 2 key items. There are many items that actually will touch children and families. I can tell you it is a very children and family-centered budget. That's great. And remember, it's a proposed budget. It's not passed yet. But the 2 things that most directly relate to the work of Preschool Promise he has put in his budget the funding that would increase the support of families, so publicly funded childcare, to add 15,000 families in the state of Ohio at some level of support to pay for their childcare. So that's one piece. The second piece that is actually very exciting, he has proposed the creation of a new cabinet-level agency. It is called the Department of Children and Youth. He has already selected who will be that lead, that cabinet member. It is a woman named Kara Wente. She is phenomenal. She headed up large parts of ODJFS, actually stepped away from the state just a few years ago for some personal reasons, and he was able to convince her to come back. We could not have a better proponent at the state level for childcare, for quality. She personally carried the quality of childcare over the deadline, July 1st. We moved it a bit because of the pandemic, but July 1st, 2020. So excellent person to have there. And what he's doing with this new position is trying to gather together a number of different parts of the state that do focus on child-related and family-related issues like the physical health of mothers, infants, and children, children's behavioral health, several other things, and early childhood education. So we'll see how that plays out. That's proposed in his budget. In terms of the state of childcare, and you've certainly heard some of this reflected in both Shara's comments and Sally's comments, couldn't agree more. Teacher shortage, teacher shortage, teacher shortage, teacher shortage, number one. It is worse in childcare than in other parts of education, and education has some of the greatest struggles right now to get employees, if I can call teachers that, to the table. So that is the number one piece. And that is continuing to result in a shortage of seats. And there really hasn't been a significant shift yet in attracting new people to the child care teacher role. But I'll get back to that in a minute. And then we are now in phase 3 of the state's stabilization grants to child care programs. And this is all ARPA money. This is helping to continue to, I would say, stabilize, help programs continue to keep their feet on the ground. Because among many other things, if you have a classroom that normally has 12 children and you only have 10, you're missing 20% of your revenue. So that is an ongoing issue there too. So I thought I would share also some local efforts that are complementing where Preschool Promise is focusing. The first is the city of Cincinnati. 2 pools of dollars to bring you up to speed on. One is a pool of money that is ARPA related, and this began a year ago. The focus of it was on helping new programs start within the city of Cincinnati. That money initially was solely designated for family child care programs. Most of it, they awarded that work to 4C for Children. Most of that money is a pass-through, where we assist with everything from the costs of training to the inspections you need to start a family child care, curriculum, cribs, whatever that might be. And we've definitely seen great success in helping new programs get started, family child care programs get started. After some discussion with us, we have asked them to expand the use of those dollars to include centers. Because we do have new and expanded centers that really need this help. So that contract change should be in place in the next month or so. So that will help with that. The second piece from the city of Cincinnati came from their general fund, you might remember, originally in Mayor Pureval's budget, which passed, and this is directly connected to the teacher shortage. So I'm happy to say that, and really appreciate that Preschool Promise was really one of the first entities to work with 4C for Children on what we call the career navigator, meaning we've got to get people into the funnel that are interested in childcare, that might not want to go the 2-year or 4-year degree route. Lots of folks that could come through other avenues. Let's get them trained, let's pay them for their time. That has really never happened in this industry. That is where most of the money goes, is actually to pay people for about 40 hours of initial training so they can walk in the door prepared to work for any number of our preschool promise and other programs. And that's where that general fund money is focused. That money should be moving within the next 30 days. In addition, Hamilton County also, under their workforce component of their ARPA dollars, identified a sub-project, which is increasing the number of child care teachers in Hamilton County. So it does obviously overlap, which is great, into the city of Cincinnati. And that contract is underway right now. 4C was identified as the top RFP reply. So we're going through literally this week the contract process. So hopefully that will be up and going in a couple of weeks. So what I would add from there is touching back on the advocacy piece. So to just review, literally in the last few hours of the last few days of the late work session in December, a group of legislators put a 2,000-page, here's what we should do with $500 million of ARPA money on the table. And embedded in that were a number of other things, including removing the requirement from family child care programs, all family child care programs, A and B, to be quality graded. And they also put in there a stipulation that for centers, if 25% or less of your children are on publicly funded child care, and that is 25% of your capacity, and that's an important point that I'll go back to in a minute, you also don't have to have any kind of rating at all. But I'm just going to be very blunt with you. This moves our work on quality as a community back a decade, for sure. Because of the way it was done, which is, kind of the last minute, literally, which, really sort of put the state in a bind, because had they not approved the whole budget, $500 million would have left the state of Ohio and gone back to the federal government. So they felt that they had to move this forward, even though there were these indirect pieces in here, some of which dramatically affect child care programs. So, here's what I'd say. This kind of took everybody by surprise, took us our breath away. But I would tell you what we've seen in the last month now or so of this being true. It is now in effect in the state. A couple of things. One is the kind of work that the Preschool Promise has done to support working with programs on getting to quality, on increasing quality, on staying at high quality. It has really supported the mindset in the field of childcare that quality is the goal, because quality makes all the difference to children, to the families, and to the teachers themselves. So on the one hand, we are not seeing a wholesale exodus yet of, hey, I have a rating, I'm not going to renew it. And don't forget, the ratings stay in place for a year after we receive it. What I would say is it's a very slippery slope, and that I think we can get erosion over time, and I think that's a very big worry, and I think it's an enormous equity issue, because family child care in particular tends to serve families of color, certainly in the urban core. It serves families who have a lot of barriers. It serves families who have complicated schedules, where maybe they're working in the evenings, things like this. So it is a very, very important area for all of us to advocate, and it will be part of that advocacy day and the agenda. You'll see it there. What I would tell you too, though, is based on the work that we are doing and other leaders, I wanted to share with you, I think it's very important for all of you as leaders of the Preschool Promise to hear the feedback we've gotten from legislators, which is even legislators that are very supportive of quality. What they say is, we get a different set of priorities when it comes to childcare every time somebody new walks in our door. And part of that's the fact that there are many, many things that need to be improved when it comes to the way we support childcare in our state. That's certainly true. but it leaves a lot of legislators just not knowing what to do. And so many of the key entities, the CCR&Rs, like 4C, the Child Care Resource and Referral entities, were part of the Ohio group. OAEYC, which is a group predominantly center-based, hundreds of them, child care providers. NAEYC, it's local chapters in our state. We are, and Groundwork Ohio, we are trying to come together to agree on what would be the top 2 or 3 priorities, and then focus in on it. And that is what's going on right now in the background, is trying to get to that agreement of what those key priorities will be. And then also, I would say local advocacy with our state representatives is also going to be important. An advocacy day is great, but we need to be, frankly, advocating every day, wherever we can, directly with those legislators when they're back in town. You know, we are the citizens that they represent. We are the families in the community. So overall, that's a very quick sort of down and dirty of what's happening. Is there anything else that I can help with or share with you?
I'd like to open up to questions from everyone if we could.
Yeah. Hi, Sally, yes.
I have a question, and that is, will family child care providers who apply to be rated be allowed to be rated? And I'm asking this question because the Preschool Promise is going to have this thing about the committee trying to establish what is quality. I'm concerned that if we maintain the step up to quality as a basis for our determination of who's eligible, can they get rated?
It's a great question, and the answer is everything remains the same. So the system's in place, the quality rating system's in place. What they changed is you're no longer required to be rated. So one of the other things that also helps, I think most providers will stay at a quality rating because of what they see that it does to transform the work they do with children. However, it doesn't hurt that there's a monetary incentive to do that too. And the state, because I can tell you, ODJFS, this was a surprise to them too. They put their heart and soul into step up to quality and continue to. So they've made it very clear to us, all of that remains the same. And by the way, as a program, if you do step down in quality, if you step away from step to quality, your base, you go all the way back to the initial base rate. So I do think that helps us a little bit. Yes?
I'm curious, what would be a couple of the priorities that are being kicked around?
Absolutely. So these are going to sound very familiar to some of the comments that you heard earlier. Number one is pay for the cost of quality. Our reimbursement rates do not reflect the full cost of quality. So that's a big one. Also, make sure that there's equity between the public school system and the community child care system. I do think this may have been talked about in an earlier board meeting, that, for example, a preschool that is set in a public school or in a school setting, they are paid on enrollment, but the moment that child, literally, same child, walks across the street, steps into a community child care program, that program is paid on attendance, not enrollment. And there's some boundaries, like for enrollment, the child has to be in a certain number of days. Undoing that inequity, or maybe making it equally, however you want to see it, is a top priority for sure. And then the third priority, and what I should share with you, what I'm reflecting are a lot of the priorities from the Child Care Resource and Referral side, although also the Ohio Association, the all these letters, CPP, it's the one that is the membership group of programs, is pretty much in agreement on this too. So when we talk about wages, which came up earlier, if you don't fix the revenue stream, it's pretty tough to fix the wage stream. And that would attract more teachers. It would improve teacher retention, all of those things. So, you know, we talk about very important things about curriculum and all of those things are important. But if you don't have the basic financial infrastructure to support it, you will constantly be, at best, trying to fix the cracks.
Any other questions for Vanessa? All right, well, thank you so much for this presentation. It was very informative for me and for our board, so thank you. Next, we're moving to the overview of preschool attendance data, and we have Dr. Culp here from Innovations for that. Welcome, Dr. Culp.
Thank you for the introduction. I'm Aubrey Culp from the Innovations in Community Research and Program Evaluation team, the external evaluator. And our team is here today to give you all an update on our deeper data dive into the Cincinnati Preschool Promise Tuition Assistance participants' attendance data for the past 5 years, alongside with their kindergarten readiness assessment results. So as many of you know, in our last year's evaluation, we recommended that CPP consider an attendance pilot to encourage regular preschool attendance. And we made that recommendation for multiple reasons. So we know from the literature that regular preschool attendance promotes preschool progress and learning and later academic success. But also that chronic absenteeism in preschool is connected to negative progress, not negative progress, but fewer positive outcomes in preschool and in later years. And as well, that chronic absenteeism in preschool increases the likelihood of ongoing attendance issues in later years in elementary school and high school. The literature also shows that there's a lot of different factors that are contributing to missing preschool. And we also have heard from your parents and teachers and providers that these factors fall into the categories of family challenges, classroom and school challenges, and community challenges such as neighborhood safety. We also wanted to show some national data to see that preschool attendance and absenteeism is a challenge throughout the country. So in one school district in Chicago, the typical preschooler was chronically absent, missing about 10 to 12% of days depending on the age in which they were enrolled. Preschool enrollment at age 3 has been correlated with having a higher attendance rate when the child would enroll in preschool at age 4. And then as well, another school district in Baltimore found that attendance habits are really formed early on, starting as early as preschool. So, and especially in the early months. So in this particular school district, the students who had missed fewer than 2 days in September continued to have that attendance habit throughout the whole school year. But their peers who missed 2 or more days, they also continued that habit, which ended up with them being chronically absent and missing up to a month of school by the end of the school year. So keeping that in mind as we think about what it means to support our students in their regular preschool attendance. So with that, I'm going to turn it over to Peter, and he's going to take us into the attendance data.
Thank you. So before we get started, I want to go over some definitions of a number of things we're talking about here. So when I speak of scheduled days, this will refer to the number of days a preschooler is scheduled by their provider to attend. And this can vary by a preschooler provider, and is determined for the purpose of this analysis by the entries in the sugar database. So the attendance rate, well, that refers to the days attended divided by the days scheduled. So for example, 18 out of 20 days, that's going to be 90%. Chronic absenteeism refers to anyone under missing more than 10% of scheduled days. And then the last is the P3 and P4 attendance. That's just referring to 3-year-old preschool attendance and 4-year-old preschool attendance. Basically P3 attendance, that's just 2 years before kindergarten. P4, 1 year before kindergarten. In the context of that, we'll follow in a minute here. But let's get started with here's the general overview. So on the left side are the annual attendance rates for community-based TA preschoolers. You can see that the rates have remained fairly stable from year to year, between 83 to 86%. And additionally, the 2019-2020 attendance, that data has actually been adjusted in this case. And you can see a footnote below the chart, and this is because during our analysis, we recognized that April and May of 2020 were not valid because they continued to record scheduled days in the sugar database during the shutdown. So after omitting them, the attendance rates resembled the other years. And the chart on the right shows that the chronic absenteeism rates have declined over the years. So the past 2 years have been the lowest at 48.4% and 53.6% respectively. And again, these data are also adjusted for the COVID shutdown. But this is a graphical representation of the analysis on kindergarten readiness by P3 and P4 attendance. The main takeaway here is that those attending 4-year-old preschool at a rate of 90% or better was predictive of higher achievement on the KRA. And remember that KRA was not administered in 2020-2021, which explains its absence on this chart. These participants, these are the high attending participants represented by the blue bars, were more often approaching or demonstrating readiness on the KRA than participants with less than 90% attendance, which are the orange bars, and they can also be thought of as the chronically absent preschool attendees. We can see that 2021 and 2022 is a bit of an outlier, but there's a clear difference in the percent demonstrating readiness, which is represented by the shaded region. So each bar is a shaded region that's specifically for the demonstrating readiness performance category, which is the top of the overall KRA score performance categories. And you can see that they performed in that year P4 attendance 27% demonstrating versus 20% for the chronically absent. These individuals were also more commonly on track in language and literacy. That's not shown here, but these differences are also statistically significant. And the effect of P3 attendance was non-significant. However, the KRA results are showing a similar pattern to the P4 attendance. Due to the lack of P3 attendance for the 2018-19 KRA cohort, we were limited to only 2 years of the KRA data for the P3 analysis. So that is analysis that we think is worth revisiting as we obtain more data. So here's a look at how consecutive years of high preschool attendance impacted KRA performance. I'm going to draw your attention to the far right side of the chart. It shows that the community-based TA preschoolers who attended 2 consecutive years of preschool with high attendance, so that's 90% or greater, they perform better than their peers with only 1 year or no years of high attendance. So you can see there's a sizable difference in the percent demonstrated readiness, that's the blue bars, and that's different between all 3 groups. And note that the analysis is an aggregate of all the CPP reports we've looked at over the years. And the reason we did that is because the sample of preschoolers with 2 years of high attendance at this time was too small to split the analysis by years. So for that reason, this is another analysis that will be interesting to revisit as our database grows. This chart, this is showing the average monthly attendance rates for preschoolers from years 1 to 5. The main takeaway here is that attendance rates are the strongest in the early months. Then they fade as we approach the holidays. And you can see that December and January are often highlighted on this chart. After the holidays, the rates begin to recover, but stop short of the rates seen in the earlier months. Some anomalies are present here, of course. We see the dip in attendance before April, May of 2020. And those 2 months, of course, were permitted due to COVID. And then you can see that there's some deviations in 2020 and 2021, but those are also understandable due to the slower start in the early months as children started returning to in-class instruction. And this here, these are actually a series of slides that are going to help you understand attendance from a different perspective. I'm going to scroll through these first 5 years here to illustrate this trend we've been seeing, the most recent one. So in short, these charts are illustrating monthly enrollment and attrition. And what this is showing is the total number of preschoolers attending each month, and that's the blue line. And that's against the running total of enrollment throughout the year, shown in orange. So this starts to divide as we progress through the year due to withdrawals for some of the participants. So in this case, although 907 in total were enrolled over the course of 2021-2022, the highest number of attending preschoolers at that time was actually 775. Though a positive we can gain from this chart is the increase in enrollment at the monthly level compared to the prior year back here. And it's actually more comparable to the 2019-2020 chart here. So we know that there's room for improvement in attendance rates, but what does that look like? How much is needed for the improvement? So what this chart is showing are hypothetical scenarios to help us visualize what success might look like. So that solid blue line, that represents the actual monthly rates for this past year, and the dotted lines are hypothetical scenarios showing what the average rates would look like if we added just 1, 2, or 3 days attended per month to each preschooler who didn't already have preschool attendance. And you can see that the blue line is in the red, chronically absent region, that's below 90% for the majority of the year. However, adding just 1 day of attendance per month can lift those rates closer to 90%, apart from the dips in the holidays. And adding 2 or 3 months shows a considerable decrease in chronic absenteeism. So this is another look at that hypothetical analysis. On the left here, you have the actual annual attendance rate for 2020 and 2021 against the 3 hypothetical scenarios. These are the annual rates. And we can see how these small adjustments can take that rate from 85.1% to near 90% by adding actually only 2 days per month. I'm going to go to this next slide. It's, I feel, a little more useful. It's more importantly, chronic absenteeism rates start to decline pretty quickly in these scenarios. So 1 day added per month drops the rate from 83.6% to 41.2%, which is a decrease of 12.4 percentage points, or 23%. 2 days per month drops it to 30.8%, and 3 days per month actually more than halves the see how these small adjustments can make big differences in attendance rates. And these can translate, as we saw in the earlier slides, to higher achievement when they reach kindergarten. And to close this out, I'm going to hand this back up to Monica Mitchell.
So I'm just going to wrap it up, and then hopefully we can have some time for discussion. So just to summarize, preschool attendance rates have ranged between 83 and 86%. So that's, that's where we are. And preschoolers who attended 90% or more were already more frequently than their peers with attendance rates below 90%. So Peter showed that graph. And then also we saw the effect of dosage, where preschoolers who attended 2 or more years also were more likely to perform better on the kindergarten readiness assessment compared to those who attended one year or no year. So we're seeing both if you attend more days and if you attend more years. And this is consistent with some of the national and local data that Aubrey presented that we've seen in other major cities similar to Cincinnati. So this really supports, some of the recommendations that we made when we presented our overall report about why we would recommend, really looking at attendance as potentially doing a pilot and how that might have an increased impact on both preschoolers and ultimately the effect it would have longer term. So here's some of the recommendations. And one thing I also might add from what Peter presented is we've already been seeing improvements in chronic absenteeism over the last 2 years. So this might be building on some of the success that we're already seeing as well. So some of the recommendations about how we might start a pilot. One is to identify and support preschoolers who are chronically absent. So really already starting with kids who are having some of the challenges with attendance. Also reducing enrollment loss from fall to spring. So where we're seeing the blue and the red lines divide, really try to figure out how we would make that divide much less dramatic. And then also focusing on parent education to support children attending preschool during the first 30 days. So the first 30 days are critical. We know that from our own data, but we also know it from some of what we're seeing in national data too, is the patterns that are established early on in preschool are more likely to be the patterns that kids and parents will continue to show throughout their preschool enrollment and potentially even beyond when they start school. Also just obtaining feedback from parents, teachers, and providers about regular preschool attendance and related barriers through surveys. We've done this on a yearly basis, but we're going to start doing this on a quarterly basis as well. And then engage parents who are most at risk for non-attendance and attrition based on real-time data. And then this is my favorite recommendation actually, because I really like the graph that Peter put together because this can feel really overwhelming. But when you look at the dotted lines, it feels very doable. Increase preschoolers' days attended by 1 day a month as an initial goal. So 1 day a month as an initial goal really starts to get us moving in the right direction. And we can see how much we can gain from that if we start with just 1 day a month, on average 1 day a month with preschoolers. We start to see the percentage of attendance go up and we start to see the rates of chronic absenteeism go down. So these are our recommendations and it'd be great to open it up for discussion.
Thank you. Who has questions? Bishop Tate.
Thank you to the team. Excellent job. Is it, or do you have any indicators as to why kids were so motivated at the beginning? Were there any incentives, classroom incentives, parent incentives that kind of motivated their desire to want to be there, then kind of see those things fall off?
So we know it from a data perspective. We can definitely talk about it from a data perspective, but there may be some professionals who also maybe know it from their own classroom. From a data perspective, it looks like, honestly,
I'm in trouble. Laura's already shaking her head. So.
Yes.
My absenteeism is
Okay.
From a data perspective, honestly, it looks like everyone's really excited to go those first few days. And then people fall into a range of different patterns. You see almost like patterns of some kids who go every day. So that's pattern A. You see pattern B of some kids who just Monday, Wednesday, Friday days, the Monday, Wednesday, Friday kids. Then you see the kids of, I'll go when mom feels like getting up, dad kids. It's like you see these profiles of kids, you almost see it in the databases that way.
In the case of 3 and 4-year-olds, it's 100% parents. When we talk about kids' attitudes,
Yep.
roles, whether they attend or they want to attend, I mean, throughout the language, it sounds like your language, it sometimes sounds like it's the kids who are deciding, like high schoolers, but it's not.
Parents. No, it's
So
parents.
really, as far as I'm guessing, 100% of the strategies are around why the parents don't bring the children.
It's cultural. I believe a lot of it is cultural, some of it's logistical. And this is what we're hearing from the focus groups, is that I believe one of the biggest barriers is that parents don't understand the long-term implications of the decisions that they make about sending their kids to preschool on a daily basis. For them, it's kind of like hit or miss, and it's like if I do great, if I don't great. But they don't understand that the power that their decisions might have in sending their kids to preschool. That's the sense that I get.
As a follow-up to that, can I ask, as part of the recommendations here, I would be very interested in learning more about why parents are saying their students are missing, to the extent we're able to get that data. I'll share with you, November, December, January, February, there's rarely 20 school days in those months, so 2 is chronic absenteeism. And I can't think of a single one of those months where one of my preschoolers hasn't missed 2 days because they were ill, and I would love for them to have been at school.
Yes.
But on this graphic, they'd be chronically absent for those months. And there's nothing we can do about that, right? I would love for them to be at school, they couldn't be at school. Now, I know that's just one of many things that impacts this, but as far as the data you show of the major changes that can occur from getting them 1 day more or 2 days more a month, I'm curious as kind of how many of these absences could we impact and how many of them are things like that there's really nothing we could do.
Yeah, we don't know why. We don't know why kids are missing. We don't know why, other than, and I don't know, Shar, if you want to mention that, or if anybody else who's, like I said, we only see it from a data perspective, and from the focus groups. I don't know if you want to talk about some of the focus group data that we have, Aubrey.
Yeah, no, I always want to jump in, right?
Sure. Go ahead.
Part of the reason we knew this question was going to come up, we did a very concentrated survey that's in the newsletter that is grouped by general community perception, actual parent perception, and provider perception. So we are hoping, in partnership with Innovations, that we will get some real-time data from those surveys and those QR codes to know not what's happening with our preschoolers and our providers, right? And so also having the information that Innovation has provided, we will go to the top 5 preschools that we know are outliers. So you see that 83% overall. We know that there are some sites that are struggling, right? And we are able to see that with our attendance record. We are ready to implement some version of all of those recommendations with the exception of number 2. Can't get to that right away. To figure out how we collect more data, but we're not going to wait until we have all that data. We're going to go ahead and try some initiatives to make sure that we understand in partnership with the providers, because I think also looking to the provider perspective, it's financially challenging for them. It's educationally challenging for them. So they have a vested interest as much as we do in figuring out what is causing this and how to address it. And fortunately, we have some resources, thanks to our supplemental budget, to try to incentivize that. And I will say, this is 100% parent-driven strategies, but one of the things that parents told us is when there was programming like peanut butter and jam, there were days when their preschooler woke up and said, Miss Elizabeth is coming today, I have to be at school, right? So no, when I suggest programming that looks like extra like that, there's something behind it that we think is gonna drive an outcome, right? We also have reached out to Beach Acres as our partner in parent education to do that, so that there will be some targeted things, postcards, mailings, and touch points that are not overbearing, but just do a touch point to say to parents, this is what attendance means, right? This is how important it is, because we can do an educational session, but that's so boring. If you get one postcard that has a game on it that says this is the nugget of fact, or if you get a text from us, sometimes that's just as meaningful on that educational trajectory as anything else. So all that to say, at the end of this quarter, we should have some data from what that survey has released. We will also have some outcomes of specific things that we are doing while we're waiting for that data to show up the things we're trying.
So, go ahead, I'm sorry.
Okay, turn that mic on. You know, this is the old issue around attendance, and it's just not cultural, it's also social, economic issue as well. There's a couple of studies back when I was in the field done with Native Americans and of course southern states and also New York around attendance, and there was a number of things that came out in terms of why parents don't have a value on the children coming to school, and many of it was I think echoed by politicians and et cetera. There's still a mentality that children should be seen and not heard. You're really not wasting anything. So some of the parents, if you have a child that the parents actually work with at home, I don't care how many days they miss, they're gonna be right on target and ahead of the rest of the class. But not all parents put that value on seeing that that child is actually gaining anything from that experience. That was one, but there was so many other things as well. So not just cultural, it's the value that some of the families hold in terms of my kid is really not getting anything there anyway. And that's part of what we have to break down, and part of, as Sally is saying, 3 and 4 year olds cannot get themselves to school. We have to show the parents where this value is and the benefit of it, and they then will be the ones who get the children.
Ms. Verlene hit the nail on the head. I don't mind throwing my daughter under the bus. If my grandbaby gets up and say, Papa, I gotta go to school, if my daughter don't feel like it, she'll make up something. You're coughing, baby. You look red. You don't need to go today. And so she'll say, Mom, what you think? And my wife said, he all right, take him on to school. And so he'll go more days because grandparents are engaged. So I hope that part of our strategy would really engage those grandparents who know exactly what Ms. Verlene just said. Get those grandparents and grab them by the hand and say, we need your help getting these babies back to school. Because Tristan studies when he's at the house, he reads, he doesn't turn on the video game, there's no playtime until after you're done with your work, and all of those are things that we grew up with, and that's what we kind of enforce on him. But to the chairman's point, I probably have about 12 sick days if I let my daughter decide whether he's sick or not. So pray for my daughter. All right, I'm good. All right.
And I think we have a real opportunity with our parent education to really focus on those first few years of a child's life, to let them know that this is where you can have a real impact that can last, you know, the child's life. So I think if we could focus more on those first 3-4 years and let parents really know that these are important years, that might have an impact, because everybody wants their child to succeed, right? And so if we can let them know that these first 3 or 4 years are the most important.
I think these are great suggestions. We're providing the data, so I think the answers are going to come from you guys and from the people, from the child care centers, and from you guys who have kids and grandkids. So this is a great discussion. Any other thoughts or ideas?
And I think some of the things that I saw as a director too was trying to get parents involved until their experience as a preschooler as well. So if they had a really good experience, they wanted their kids to have a good experience as well, so they brought them back to where they started. So I had not only the parents, and then I had the children, but I had the support of the grandparents as well, because they had that experience. And I think that when we look at the cost of quality and those things that keep us from having a challenge with having staff and consistent staff. Children need consistency throughout their day, throughout their school year. And so if they see those same faces all the time, and the parents see those same faces, they are comfortable. And they're like, okay, you have to go to school. And there are things that they're looking forward to, like peanut butter and jam, and activities that are going on in the school, in the center. So we consistently try to help them understand the importance of their own childhood. I think that we can kind of not eliminate that absenteeism, but kind of get it under control.
Any other questions? Go ahead, Deb.
I have a comment. I think it's really important to look at parent education from a cultural lens and who's doing the education. To me, that is extremely important. You know, are parents getting the same type of parent education in family, centers, or in child care base? I think that is part of the cultural bridge that we also need to look at.
Thanks, Debbie. I think that's come up a few times.
And just one more thing with what Debbie just said. She's so right, because there's also studies that show that the centers that engage parents and have parents' activity have a higher attendance rate of the children coming to the, so there's several studies out there that support that. And I know everyone is busy, this is a new time, you running in, picking up a child, you don't have much time to socialize, but those centers that have managed to engage those parents some way also have higher attendance rate for preschoolers.
That's great. We can add some additional information to this slide deck on parent education and on the cultural piece.
And I think we also don't want to minimize that with this parent education has to come tangible resources to make those connections available. So there are some barriers that exist to attendance that we know we need to address, right? We always talk about transportation. That is not a cultural thing, that is not a parent choice, that is a practical barrier that we have to address. I just want to also say, in terms of that parent engagement, Preschool Promise is taking on the task closely aligned with our strategic plan to say, how do we fund those opportunities for parent engagement so that you are able to do that?
Quick question for Doc, I'm sorry, for Dr. Mitchell. The Parents on Point that we used to do was a great strategy. I don't remember if one aspect of that was parent engagement and or parent education.
Yeah,
but that was a great,
part of it.
yeah, that was a great avenue for the kinds of things that we're talking about today.
Yeah,
Okay.
we can include that as part of we'll add some parent education programs, we can include that one. Yeah. And then I just had a question for Sally, because Sally, I know, not only is this not a new issue, but this is one that you brought up a long time ago as far as being important. I don't know if you had any thoughts in particular about this topic, or what might be some good, important things to consider.
Well, the word pilot has come up a few times, and I'm just so curious about what has worked in other communities. I know one of an early discussion I had with Shara when she came on was taking a look at Dayton, which paid parents directly a bonus or something for high attendance. It's been years since I've heard of that, and I don't know whether it worked or it worked well or not. But I think probably our next step is to identify, not guess at it, but to look around the country at who has been successful in increasing attendance and taking a look at some of those options.
Right, yeah, we can do that.
We have kind of a top list of top 5,
Yeah.
And then we kind of got to a top two that we think fit in with our current funding structure. So I think we are ready to do that, kind of best practices and some things that we mentioned.
Any other comments or questions? Thanks, Innovations team. This was a really helpful presentation and spurred some good discussion, so thank you for that. Next, we're going to move into committee reports. We got governance first. Deb, we'll turn it over to you.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chairman. I would like to ask you to turn to page 38 in your packet for a brief introduction of Christy Phillips, who I am presenting for the class of 2023 to complete the term of Gary Lindgren, who resigned. Christy currently is the director of the Cincinnati Business Committee. When Christy walked in the room, a lot of people said, "Oh, hi, I haven't seen you in a long time." And I said, "I don't know her." I better try to get to know her since we're going to be on the board together. But seriously, Christy has a rich history of being a leader in the field of education, business. She currently works for the Cincinnati business community. She is a graduate of the Ohio State University, where she earned a bachelor's degree in arts education and a master's degree in educational policy and leadership. Christy will be coming to us with a wealth of experience in public, private, education and business. She has worked with the Cincinnati Business Committee for a while. She left, she retooled or rebooted, came back, and so when she returned in 2018, she continued her work around educational issues. She has been very involved in the launch of Ohio Excels and recently served on the Ohio Publicly Funded Child Care and Step Up to Quality Study Committee. In her free time with her family, she enjoys hiking at the Cincinnati Nature Center, coaching, or watching soccer games and teaching her kids to cook. I'd like to recommend to the board that we accept Christy as a member of the Preschool Promise Board. She is a United Way nominee.
We'll take that as a motion. Is there a second? All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? All right, the motion carries. Welcome, Christy. Sally seconded.
Could I just say something, just a moment about Christy, and that is, you know, sometimes when you see heads of state talking to with different languages, talking to each other, and somebody's whispering in the air, interpreting, I think of Christy as the one who interpreted all this preschool stuff to the business community so they could understand it. So she's the CEO whisperer or something about preschool.
I like that.
Yeah, I was so excited when I heard you were the nominee, Christy. Thanks, and thanks for your service to our group. We're excited to have you.
If I can get this on, I'll just say,
Press blue. Blue? Here, and press that. Press.
The gray part lights it up here.
I'll be out here and lose this.
Because it's not working.
We give our new board member a faulty mind.
That's okay. It's okay.
She's
Thank
a
you.
teacher, she's got to teach a
Thank you for the warm welcome. I'm really honored to be serving with this group. A lot of friendly faces. I've been following the work you've been doing for years. Was really involved in helping kind of get this started, and I'm just looking forward to this. So thank you, and thank you for the work you've been doing. Thank you.
Go ahead, yeah, you continue with your report.
I'd like to complete my report with something less exciting. If you turn to page 39, at our last meeting, we talked about the fact that we needed to look at the governance principles, especially in light of being able to put in writing succession principles. So that's what the governance committee sought to do from December through our meeting in early January. So there are some, I'll call them little nits on page 39. And I will call Jacob out. He left, Jacob Purcell. So I'm on my own here. So let's turn page 39 and turn to page 41. Under 5D, there's another little nit, CPP's mission. Under E, there is the word succession in red. Okay, let's turn forward. The Community Engagement Committee is changing its name to the Communications Committee, and that's provided for in this document under board committees. And we had talked about that as something that we needed to do as, if you will, a formal cleanup for that committee's title. I think it's important to note there's some legalese on page 43. The words notwithstanding, if a vacancy occurs in the position of chairperson of the governance committee and or communications committee, the board chair shall select a replacement chairperson to serve for the remainder of the vacated committee chairperson's then term. That's something that we had not talked about previously. Giving yourself a rest, if you would turn forward to page 47, I think this is the crux of the matter that we need to talk about today. There's more language around the chairpersons and the responsibilities. I think under successorship, and we had not dealt with as a practical matter the need for successorship and putting it in writing. Okay, so this is where we get into musical chairs. In the need that the chair cannot serve or is absent, the secretary will become the vice chairperson or is the vice chairperson of the board and will serve in the role of the chairperson in a temporary or permanent absence. So I think two key thoughts. If anything happens with Micah that he can't make a meeting or, is not able to continue with his duties, then Marcia, who is the secretary, will take on those responsibilities either temporarily or until his term is up. Okay, so the next section does name secretary and the vice chairperson. And just, I summarize essentially what's in that red section. The treasurer, okay, if something happens to Micah and Marcia, then you're it. The treasurer will take on the responsibility.
Read this section very carefully now.
Very carefully.
This is
The
where
treasurer shall serve as the secretary at any meeting from which the secretary and vice chairperson is absent. If a vacancy occurs in the position of the treasurer for any reason, the chairperson shall select a replacement treasurer to serve for the remainder of the vacated treasurer's then current term. Does anyone have any questions? We did talk about, we have a airing of this at the executive committee, but I want to give the board an opportunity to, give comment, raise questions, etc. about page 47.
Any questions or discussion?
And if you have any questions or discussions, you could become. So
be careful.
I have a question. Is there a section here that identify, what the executive committee is?
Okay, there is a section, and let me see if I can come back to that.
It's on page 52 of the packet.
52. Or 40.
I think 52.
52 in red.
Board committees.
Yeah, okay, it's under board committees. The executive committee is 8A. And I think that one of the things that I need to know for right now, we have had 2 United Way representatives on the executive committee. We have had 2 CPP, 2 Promise Forward reps and 2 CPS reps on the executive committee. And that has been parity, if you will. By Marcia becoming the secretary, we will now temporarily have 7 people on the executive committee. And I will name them. Micah is the chair. Marcia is the secretary / and vice chair. I'm the chair of the governance committee. Terry is the chair of the communications committee. Tony is the chair of finance. Sally is she is an at-large rep to the executive committee. Have I gotten to 7? Am I missing anybody? And Berlin is on the executive committee, so that's 7. So this issue of parity, and I may as well open it up now. We talked about that, and I wanted to be sure everyone was aware that we will have that odd number until the election in September. One of the things that has been talked about in this room, in the parking lot, is, are we really big girls and big boys now? Or are we really preschoolers as a board? Because we were constituted, by our governance principles and our, what do you call that?
Master agreement.
Master
Yeah.
agreement. And we really need to take a look at our nominating processes. And one of the things that I said, I'm curious on where we stand with the talks about the master agreement. I don't want to, put an elephant in the room, but I do think at some point we need an update. We need an update on that. I know today is not the day, but that could also have some, if you will, confluence or influence or confusion with the master agreement process.
So I'll work to make sure we can have that discussion at a future board meeting. I want to return us to the recommendation from the governance committee at hand because we got to get approval for it to be in effect. Does anyone have any comments or discussion on the proposal brought forward by the governance committee? I have a motion to accept it.
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
Second by Tony, moved by Pastor Tate. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? All right, the motion carries. Deputy Moore, for your committee report.
Sally, you raised your hand. You may be too late.
Well, not on the recommendation. I wanted to wait till after that was done. The thing that Debbie just
Blurt it out.
touched on is something that anybody who's been through some sort of manager or development training about new organizations hears about forming, storming, norming, and performing. And we are at a performing phase in this organization. We've gone through the birthing And I do think that the way our board members are selected is no longer appropriate for an organization in this stage. And I really look forward to a conversation when we think about how else a self-governing organization chooses its successor board members.
And I appreciate that, Sally. I do think that we're mature enough and responsible enough to have that conversation and to really think about the implications of it, in the public domain and whatever other quarters we have to have the conversation. But thank you.
Deb, do you mind if I ask if we start those conversations in the governance committee
Ooh.
here in the next little while at upcoming meetings, and folks can bring thoughts there that way, and we'll get that discussion going there. It's the right place to start. All right, anything else from your report, Deb?
I'm done.
All right, we have community engagement / communications, Terry.
Thank you. I have to hold this button because it'll go off. Okay. The Communications Committee has been charged by our wonderful chairperson to address the legacy of our past chairperson, Dr. Odell Owens. And we want to really look at how we're going to honor him and make sure that his legacy is withstanding through our organization and by our organization. So we are really asking for input from the board about some ideas that you may have that where we may further the influence of Dr. Owens. We've had suggestions about a giving library because he was really passionate about literacy, reading, math for our young people. And so we're looking at those things. We're looking at outings that would serve to expand the children's reach into a world that they may not know. And we know that he was really passionate about fishing. And some of those things, some of those activities would bear witness to his legacy as well. Also, he was concerned about attendance. And he spoke on how the schools, the one school that he was involved with, they gave away bikes in order to make sure that the children came to school. And some of those strategies will work and some of them won't, but we really need the input from the board in order to make this this recognition for him meaningful. We know that he was a doctor, he was a medical doctor. He was concerned about children, mothers, the community's health. He talked to us about this COVID thing that's going on. He was really passionate about making sure that we were healthy, as a board. So we want to go on and extend that message out to the community. And that's why we're trying to make sure that we're communicating to all of our stakeholders about what we're doing. Like Shara had mentioned before, we have our newsletter that's online that's letting everyone know about what the providers are doing and also what this board is doing. And we want to include this in our newsletter about what Dr. Owens wanted for this community. So we're really asking for you to kind of reach out to me and make sure that I know what those suggestions are so that we can play this forward.
Thanks. Any questions or comments on that for Terry now? Please do take her up on the invitation to seek her out and let her know your thoughts on that. Thanks for leading that task, Terry. Appreciate it. Okay, next we need the last two items of your pack, the last two pages, page 60 and 61 in red, is our updated committee list. The only changes are adding Marcia to the executive committee by virtue of her becoming secretary and now secretary vice chair, and then putting Christy on a couple of committees as well. our rules say that I bring these forward, and then when they need to be approved by everyone, does anyone have any questions or comments? Like I said, those are the only changes. Okay, can I have a motion for approval, please?
So moved.
By Laura, is there a second? Second by Terry, all in favor, please say aye. All opposed? Okay, motion carries. We have observer comment next on our agenda. Do we have any observers who would like to? Vera, I see you back there. We've got a.
Good job, good job.
Okay. Thank you, appreciate that. Great meeting today, everyone. This was, I think, a really substantive one where we got through a lot of good information and good discussion. Laura, do you have an announcement or a question? Oh, okay, we're almost there.
Wait, not yet. Go ahead.
Oh, okay. No February meeting, so our next one's not until March. Thanks, everyone. Is there a motion to adjourn? Laura, is there a second?
Second.
Second, all right. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Motion adjourned. Got through a lot in an hour and a half. Thanks, everyone.